Great. Hi. Well, I'm Alli French. I'm the executive director of Talent Maker City, which is a small makerspace in Talent, Oregon, down near Ashland. For those of you that haven't traveled down towards the Oregon-California border, we're down on that end of the state. It was interesting popping on early and listening to the history of the Cow Creek tribes. I usually start off our talks by doing a land acknowledgement for us. So we acknowledge that Talent Maker City is located on the ancestral homelands of the Shasta and Takelma peoples who lived here for millennia. We are grateful and inspired by their innovation, self-reliance, and resilience despite their forced removal from these lands. Additionally, we acknowledge that this is a point of reflection for us all as we work towards dismantling colonial practices. We have a much longer land acknowledgement that's on our website, and you can check that out. I'm going to be sharing our website here shortly. But first of all, thank you for asking Talent Maker City to come speak. It's pretty exciting to get to talk about our work and to share what we do with you. And I'm so glad that Ryan asked us to speak about our Rise Up and Rebuild programming that we've developed in response to the Alameda wildfire that swept through Talent in September of 2020. And it pretty much destroyed a third of our housing. So we're still in the process and will be probably for the next 10 years rebuilding from that. Talent Maker City was founded in 2016, and we serve Southern Oregon as a regional hub for creative and economic innovation. Our mission is to build a more connected, more prosperous community through hands-on creativity and STEAM-based learning. We currently have a staff of 6 people, and we've got 3 high school interns that work with us as well. And depending on what time of year it is, we hire anywhere between 5 and 32 instructors who are amazing and are kind of the heart and soul of all of our programming. And we're also backed by an incredibly powerful and diverse board of directors. We've got a wonderful board. From our very beginning, we made it a focus to be an integral part of an inclusive, community accessible maker ecosystem. That's what we call kind of all the makers down here in Southern Oregon. We all work together and refer to each other depending on what tools and equipment we each have. And we like to make sure that it removes barriers and inspires youth, artists, makers, and manufacturers to learn, create, and build skills. That maker ecosystem is what we call our community partners. And we wouldn't be able to do what we do without them. They're pretty much how we bring our mission to life. And I was gonna show a short video, but I ended up having to run home because the internet at our office went down about 10 minutes ago. So I made it home in time to present from here. So I'm gonna actually, instead of showing the video, because I'm not sure if mine will handle it, I'd love to share my screen here. And let's see here. So I'm going to just briefly share a few things on our website, and you can see some of the work that we've done. And then I've got a little slideshow that I'm going to show. Part of our Rise Up and Rebuild programming has been focused on this bus project that we've done. We've worked closely with the Southern Oregon ESD and Project Youth Plus and Rogue Workforce Partnership and South Medford High School on converting a school bus into housing. And it has been a huge undertaking. We started in March of, I'm putting this up because it's way more fun to look at the pictures of the kids than me talking. We started a march about a year ago, and it was in response to the fire. We had a couple of school buses that got donated to us from the Schoolie Home Foundation. And the idea was to have students gut it and build it out to be housing for a family that lost their home in the fire. So we have students who are learning all kinds of CTE skills, is what we call them, the career and technical education skills. They learned construction, they learned plumbing, they learned electrical. And through the process, we actually ended up writing curriculum around it. So it's open source curriculum. Anybody can take a peek at it. All of this is available on our website. That was part of the reason we decided to do it in partnership with so many groups, is we wanted to make this accessible to everyone afterwards. So any school district could undertake this project. And the curriculum is actually K through 12. We worked with high school students on the bus from Phoenix High School and from Armadillo Technical Institute and South Medford High School. And but the curriculum, we've got all kinds of great here. Let me do a little show off of the curriculum here for a second. So we did activities around applied math that were involved with scaling up the bus. So you can see that picture there on the top where the kids had, we cut those out on our laser engraver. It's just little 1/8 inch birch plywood. And the students had to do the math of scaling down the bus to 1/8 of the size. And then we also mapped it out on the floor in the makerspace with just like blue tape to real size. So we could kind of get the feel of what it would be like to walk through the bus if we had like furniture and how big things could be. But the kids were involved from the very get-go in the design. We had like a little presentation that they all did to some community experts, and people gave feedback on the design and where things should go. But for the most part, things ended up where the students put it. We had one of the kids that was working with us was rather tall. And when you're working in a bus that's got a rounded ceiling, they really wanted to make sure that you could stand up fully in the shower. So the shower ended up being in like the middle back part of the bus. So the bathroom kind of was designed. And once we got the bathroom placed, we were able to put other things in there. But you can access this curriculum on our website. It's talentmakercity.org. And you can just look up about the bus project and it's got the curriculum on there. But our kindergarten and first grade, second grade curriculum, we've even got things up to 5th grade in here, and looking at insulation and sustainability. There's all kinds of projects on there. And then our high school curriculum, these all apply, they align with math and science standards. Our high school curriculum aligns with career and technical education standards. So you can pop in and look at those. In fact, we've got a great, I think if I open this one, our employability rubric that we used here has, sorry about the sideways view. You're gonna have to like all turn your heads this way. But you can kind of get an idea of what we used to grade the students on it. They all received credit for working on the bus. And actually at the end, if they followed the employability rubric, which had things like, are you reliable? Are you able to communicate and collaborate and show up on time with a great attitude? And the kids were put to the test with a lot of those things because we were working in like hot days, cold days. The bus went through a full year seasons. And when they completed their time, they received a stipend from Project Youth Plus for $300 if they had shown up and on time and worked really well with their peers. So that you can check out the curriculum on there. I'm going to show you a few of the things. We actually had the bus plans on here, so you can kind of pop in and look at each part of the bus that we did. We started with, like demo, and then here the design one's probably going to be the most interesting because I want to show you some other things that we've done related to the fire. But we actually had the kids map out inch by inch. So this is all very accurately drawn out. They had to figure out where each thing was going to go in the bus and done to scale. So we modeled it 3D and then also walked through each part. So the bus plans look different depending on which tab you look at over here. Like if you're looking at the electrical tab, it has all the electrical wires and you can look at where the wiring goes on each thing. And we had kids in here just fully taking the bus apart. They insulated it. They did all the wiring. We have lights that work. It's about 90% done. It's going to be done by June. We finished our part right before spring break, and we passed the bus back to South Medford, and they're finishing up some of the cabinetry and putting the toilet and the kitchen sink in and the trim and the flooring. So that's all supposed to happen by June. But it was a pretty wonderful project to walk through with students on there. So that I could probably talk about this for the entire half an hour, but I do want to share a few other things that we've done around the fire and our Rise Up and Rebuild programming. So please take some time. That's all available to you. Since you can access our website after I'm done talking, I'm gonna let you do that and check out the teacher resources. whether you're homeschooling or working in a school, that's all available to you. And if there's questions at the end, I can always come back to this too. But for right now, I'm gonna pop over here and see if this works for you. Let's go. Can you all still see my screen okay? Somebody give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Anyone? Okay, great, thank you. So we started our Rise Up and Rebuild programming immediately after the fire, and I always get a little choked up when I talk about this. So when the fire swept through Talent, it impacted our most marginalized community, which is all the folks who live in our trailer parks and our low-income housing, just by the nature of where the fire was swept through. It swept through along our greenway. And I mean, the whole thing, everything happened within like 3 hours. Everything was gone. And so when we looked at where the path of the fire had gone, we realized it impacted the students we work with the most in our programming, and that we had delivered STEM kits to the summer before with our summer programming because it was still COVID. And so we felt very inspired to start doing something right away, since these were students and families that we worked with directly. And so we started this Rise Up and Rebuild programming, and we partnered up. The very first thing was we partnered up with an organization called Girls Build, which is out of Portland. They reached out immediately after the fire, and it turns out we share in a lot of instructors. Some of their instructors live down here in Southern Oregon. They do camps all across Oregon in summer. I bet you have some outside of Roseburg there for sure. And they offered to provide some initial funding so that we could start building beds for families right after the fire. So we started building beds, and we ended up building a total of 55 beds for families, and we're still doing that. We've just finished our 62nd bed. So, but we just restarted that programming here pretty recently. So, so we have beds that are getting built, and then we delivered them to homes or garages where people were living, or to families that had like 20 people now living in their house because families took families in, but people didn't have a place to sleep. So this was really a rewarding and meaningful project that we started. We also did, last summer, we partnered up with Phoenix Talent School District again, and we did a lot of our Rise Up and Rebuild programming as part of our summer programming with students. And all of our programming has an applied math focus. So we do like formative and summative assessments around all of our programming. So we do like a pre and a post test or survey. We don't like to call it a test. That doesn't sound very fun if you're doing summer school. But like this mural project that was done was around the theme called Stronger Together. And we made 32 murals that were 4 feet by 6 feet in size, but the students actually scaled the artwork up from a small drawing. So people submitted art, and it was selected by the Talent Public Arts Committee. And as part of this camp, the students did the math to scale the art up onto a mural. So it had that STEM and STEAM focus. And students were really into it. Art is super healing and really meaningful when you can actually do something that's going to go around. So all 32 of these murals are now lining our transitional housing, which has been set up. There's RVs, there's 53 RVs and 53 families living almost right downtown for temporarily right now. And then we also have a whole bunch of FEMA trailers set up all over. But it was pretty sweet because the high school students were painting the art, but the art was actually done by all ages. Here's one that was made into a giant mural that was done. So I'm just going to kind of zip through a few of these. And then another project that we did as part of our programming, students researched the manzanita tree and found out that it was resilient, a symbol of resilience in a lot of communities, because they're I don't want to say this incorrectly, they're fire resistant. They're not fireproof, they're fire resistant, and fire helps them regrow. And so they wrote poems and did artwork around manzanitas. And now these interpretive signs are placed along the greenway, which was part of the fire's path. And then we also did some welding. So we welded these manzanita branches together. The kids built these public art pieces that are now installed at all 11 of the schools in the Phoenix Talent School District, as well as at the fire station here in town. And tomorrow, they've been delayed a little bit. 2 of them are headed up to the McKenzie and the Santiam School District because they had a fire the same day that we did. So they're going to be a gift from the schools up to those school districts. So these really turned out beautifully. The kids had such pride, and it was really, really amazing to see them conquer the element that took their homes away. So most of the kids working on these were directly impacted by the fire. So they talked about how it felt to, how scary it was to work with the fire, but then how empowering it was to kind of conquer it. They used a plasma cutter to cut out the leaves. We don't have a plasma cutter at our makerspace, but the high school had one, and that's where we did a lot of this programming with our instructors. And they just turned out beautifully. They're really gorgeous, and they made the stands for them, and they're now in like the pollinator gardens at the elementary schools, and they're really beautiful. And it was really a cool experience. And they all have the interpretive signs that go with them with the students' names on them, and it's pretty sweet. So there's some more of the interpretive signs, and that's along the greenway. And we put those in September, so we still have our smoke season smoke in the sky that's going on. So that's a little bit out there. So here's some of the murals that are up actually at the site where the families are now living, or some of the families are living behind there. And then this fall, we've started doing even more. So instead of just making beds, we wanted to know what people needed. We didn't want to assume that people still needed beds. A lot of people are living in, this is one of the FEMA trailer parks. You can see in the background some of the housing. We built these kiosks as a way of communicating with residents who, in the trailer parks, they already had like their community of neighbors and knew everybody. And, you know, you could call on your neighbor to watch your kids for a little bit. And then that just got decimated with the fire. So now we have just different families trying to create a new sense of community in the FEMA trailer parks. And we built these kiosks to help with that communication. And we also attached a request box to the kiosk where people could put in, I need a bookcase, I need a coat rack, I'd love to have a picnic table outside in front of my FEMA trailer. So we've got different requests that people can put in for different things. And we've started making those, and now we're booked out until June right now with all of the requests that have come in, because this is still a process that's going on. So we're still building beds and other creature comforts. We just had a workshop with kids where, I don't have those pictures in my slideshow yet, but we just finished a workshop where the kids are learning how to use these handheld CNCs, and they made these little fold-up chairs so they can go under a bed if they're living in an apartment or still in a trailer, but they pop up, and they've got little slats and webbing on the back. They're very, very cute, and they got super into making those. So it's in talking about all this, I think when Ryan first reached out, the idea is just to really hit home how important it is, like STEM and STEAM, and actually having a makerspace in your community that can respond to not just disasters, like natural disasters like this. We also responded to COVID, working with the hospital. Our 3D printers were making like ventilator connectors with kids. We had kids making face shield brackets and dropping them off, and then we'd send them off to get sterilized before they went to the hospital. It was a real community way to respond, and it felt, well, for me anyway, it felt pretty empowering when at the very beginning of COVID, it was just this like, what's happening, what can we even do, and how do we respond to it? So I think having that, I don't know, there's so many things that happen within our makerspace around community and around making, but we also do community events. And so it's a nice place for the community to gather. And so when you're looking at like STEM and STEAM, the art component, even when you look at like the ability to do outreach within the community and address our different cultures even, is really powerful. And art has a way of doing that, just like science and technology and engineering and math, which is pretty great. I want to leave a couple minutes to answer any questions if anybody has it. I just covered a whole lot of stuff, but I wanted to leave some time in case people did have questions here at the end. And if not, I can go back and show more off about the bus thing, but I thought those were all things that people could access on their own. Does anybody have any questions?
I was just say thank you so much. Yeah, for everyone else, I heard Alli talk, I think was it last year or something, but and I was just like, wow, they're doing so many things. And just like even in that year, you're all doing so much more. And just, you know, I just love the idea of using STEM and STEAM to address real world problems. And just like, I don't know, I was like very touched when you were talking about the like some of the students whose homes were burned down using fire and they being transformed in that. And it's just like, it's gives me goosebumps. But just, yeah, all the work that you are all doing and just being able to really, yeah, like have those empowering experiences for young people, and being able to give back either to their own communities or to help their own families or other people who have been impacted. So just a big thank you to you for sharing all this. I'll turn it around, and then if other people have questions,
and you know, I like somebody asked this question. I presented to a group in Utah not that long ago, and they're like, well, we haven't had a natural disaster, so how do we make this happen in our community? How do we do this? And I just feel like every community has needs, you know, like we also work with youth that are involved with our Maslow project, which are youth that are homeless. But we open up the space once a week for those students, and they come in and they're helping us make like cornhole for Earth Day, and they're helping us do things, but it's really, making is so good for your mental health, your mental and emotional health. And so finding ways to tie into serving the community in that way where it's, you know, it doesn't have to be so serious all the time. You can be making giant Jenga and laughing and having a really good time while you're doing it. And it feels just as good as doing something where you're making a bed to give back to somebody, because it's just part of that process of establishing a community. So yeah, I'd love it if anybody has any questions.
I guess I have a little bit of a question about like how the students get involved. So is that something like that they sign up for, or is that something where you go to schools and do presentations and then you partner with certain classes, or how do students find your programs and how do they find which one that they want to be involved in?
That's great. Yeah, our good question. It's kind of a combination of both. Our summer programming was last year was open to like students in Southern Oregon, because Phoenix Talent just, they blew the doors wide open and let kids sign up. So I think we saw like 300 kids last summer in a variety of different camps. So those were just some of the things we did. We also made go-karts and did robotics and cutting boards and made little libraries and, you know, little community libraries. So we had a whole bunch of different things going on. So that was that. So in the summer, it's a little bit more wide open. Right now, we just built a bed yesterday with kids who are normally doing like the Phoenix Talent Online programming, which is their Phoenix Talent Rising. It's kids who are still doing remote learning after COVID, and they're going to probably keep that going because it's working for some kids, which is great. I love when people meet kids where they're at. And so that's with a special class. So we're just doing that with them once a week. The Maslow group, we're partnering up with them. We're actually just trying to get more of an established presence with Maslow, so students can also come in and know that we're a resource for other things. So there's a Maslow worker that's going to be on site for a couple hours every week, so that students can come in if they need clothing or tampons, whatever, they can swing by, and that person from the Maslow project will be there to give resources. So that's also kind of another special program. But we do adult workshops too. That's the video I wanted to show. So when you get a chance, go to our website. We got a little 4-minute video. You can see all the adult workshops we do too. And we just did one for adults in the community. Some of them were making like one was we made like little beer caddies and they all had a beer afterwards. Like they made a little 6-pack holder. Like we do fun things with, they're learning woodworking, and adults can do that. And then we also did one where they did mosaics and made their new address plaques for their houses as they're moving back into their homes. So we kind of have just a variety of things. And those were all suggestions that came from the community. And we're like, well, can we do it? Yeah, we can. Let's see what happens. So, but some of it is really grant specific. So that's kind of the thing with a nonprofit. Sometimes you're like, oh, if this is where the funding is, it will serve this community for this grant. And then we'll open up these other things to the whole community. So it does, sometimes you're asking a question I get a lot from parents, like, hey, how does my kid get involved? And then I'm like, right now we're only working on this grant. So that's a really good question. Like we're serving all of the fire impacted families, but maybe only certain kids because of the grant or the specific class we're working with. Good question.
I'm also from the area, so I just want to say thank you for all of your work. I think it's amazing.
Oh, thank you. Thanks. Yeah, it's fun to, every now and then it's fun to do a little talk about it. I get to reflect on it from a big picture view rather than just the the day to day. So it's nice to talk about it.
Any other questions?
Nope.
All right. Looks like we don't have any other questions here, but
That's great. I talked so
thank you
fast,
so
everybody gets 2 more extra minutes to go to the bathroom. That's great.
there you go.